Hey everyone, it's Michael Bruin from Simplifying Life, and yeah, thanks very much for signing up for your free report or whatever you want to call it, the resilience course that I'm going to send you. Hey, this is a video that accompanies that reports, just expanding on some of those things that I've discussed in there. We'll talk about resilience. So resilience, I'll get straight into it. This will be about a 10-minute video, I reckon. But resilience, when you look at it from a simplistic point of view, is the ability to bounce back from tough events or situations. I call it bounce back ability, but give it any name. There's probably more formal ones there as well. In actual fact, resilience is a little bit more complex than this, obviously, according to the research. It applies to our responses as they happen, obviously, because that's when resilience really comes up. But it also applies to situations that are going to happen so that we anticipate happening. And then thirdly, resilience also applies to the way we deal with things after they have happened. So how do we regulate that? And ultimately, resilience also describes the behaviors that we apply all through those processes. So it's quite an intricate topic. Now, resilience from a mental health point of view is one of those skills that translates to all areas of your life, as far as I'm concerned. It applies to your work, it applies to family, health, personal development, your finances, social connections. You mentioned it applies everywhere. So to know a little bit about resilient and to become more resilient and to be resilient, live a resilient life is a good thing in all areas of your existence. So it concerns all aspects of you as well, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior. So keep that in mind as well. Constant adaptation to situations and improving your resilience skills, your resilience muscles will help you for a lifetime. I can promise you that. That's the result from the research for sure, which is why I wanted to have this resilience report, and also why I've made this video for you especially. So the good thing, and I'll keep repeating that, is that resilience is a skill that can be learned, and it's a skill that I can teach you. So you can learn it and I can teach you that one. Now, in the report that I emailed you, you'll find stacks of information on resilience and how to build it. There are many ways. And in this video, I would like to highlight two practical tips on each of the 5 factors that research has considered to be the most important ones for building resilience. So 5 factors most important, 2 skills each. So you're going to end up with 10 tools in your toolbox. Now, what are those 5 most important building blocks according to research? Well, number 1 is emotional regulation. Number 2 is optimism. Number 3 is what they call cognitive agility. Number 4 is self-compassion. And number 5 is self-efficacy. I've done a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel about each of these 5, a little bit more detail. I won't discuss them in too much detail here. I'll give you a real quick definition of them, but I will give you 2 tips on each to build, so you can start applying that straight away, end up with 10 extra tools in your toolbox. So if you're ready, let's do it. Emotional regulation. Well, that speaks for itself. It's the ability to regulate whatever emotions come up when they come up. So to be okay in situations where you're not okay, or to learn to be okay. Now, tip number 1, tool number 1 when it comes to emotional regulation is what I call 5-1-5 breathing. There are many breathing techniques. 5-1-5 breathing is one that I really like because it's completely based on science, and it works. Science has suggested. So what's the idea behind 5-1-5 breathing? It's simple. You inhale for 5 seconds, so actually really slowly breathing in. Hold for a second, and then really slowly you breathe out for 5 seconds. So ultimately you end up with about a 10 or 11 second cycle of breath. In for 5, 1 hold, out for 5, 1 hold, etc., etc. And you can want to do that for about 2 minutes. I'm not going to go too deep into the science of it, but that level of breathing really correlates with all sorts of stuff that goes on in our brain and in our heart and in our lungs and barometric pressures inside ourselves. Just keep in mind that if you do that breathing, you actually stimulate the vagus nerve to send messages back to your brain that you're doing okay. So through controlling your breathing, you can actually have some influence on your emotional state. So it's a really good one. There's more stuff behind it I can explain to you, but it's a really good one to help regulate you when you're not doing great, but also as a preventative tool to just help you maintain levels of resilience, calm, whatever you want to call it. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is what I call STOP. STOP is an acronym that stands for 4 things that you want to do when you're not feeling great. The first one is to actually stop. That's the S, stop. So when you're feeling emotional, stop. Number 2 is take a breath. So you stop, take a breath, preferably 3. The O stands for observe. So observe your surroundings, observe what goes on in your body, observe what goes on in your mind, feel your body, ground yourself on the floor, feel your body inside space and time, and just become centered again in this existence rather than probably in your head where all this thinking is taking place. So that's stop, or the O. And then the P in stop stands for proceed, but now proceed in a way that's more effective than what you just intended to do. So if you intended to freak out, don't, but maybe go get a glass of water or walk away, literally walk away from the situation or whatever you do, but find another way of dealing with the situation than what you were just thinking. So that's 2 tips for emotional regulation. 5-1-5 breathing and stop. And you can combine them. Stop and 5-1-5 breathing can easily be combined, and they're a really good one. Now, optimism, that's skill number 2 in the resilience toolkit. Optimism is this idea of feeling hopeful and confident about a potentially better future, about a future that's better. Now, the experiment would be to start writing for 15 or 20 minutes and grab a piece of paper and a pen, preferably, don't type, preferably, but grab a piece of paper and pen, and then pick a future date, several years away, potentially, maybe 5 years, and assume you have achieved everything that you would like to achieve. Everything is gone the way you would like it. Now, conjure up an image in your own mind, in the mirror, 5 years from now, confident about what's going on, having fulfilled all your plans, all your aspirations and your adventures and whatever else, and then visualize that and start writing. And then start writing about what that is, envision that future and start writing what that looks like. And talk in present tense. I am sitting here doing this, blah, 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 blah. I feel so good about myself. So really get into the facts, the emotions, the thoughts, and into the behaviors of what will be different when you've achieved all that. So your personality, your ideas, the people that you talk to, just write and generally don't stop writing. So spend 10 minutes or 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, whichever way, spend time writing about this ideal day into the future somewhere. Talk about your surroundings. What have you chosen? Where are you? What are you doing there? Who's with you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And talk in present tense. What's the weather like? You know, how's the city looking? How's the landscape doing? How's the forest doing? Wherever you are, what are you doing that describes that perfect day somewhere in the future when everything is okay? And let your mind go wild. It's not about actually making it come true. It's about imagining enough so your brain catches on to that idea and starts thinking about it a little bit more. It really works. Tool number 2 in the optimism scale is what I call the 3 blessings exercise. Or I don't know, or that's just not me calling it. Martin Seligman calls it the 3 blessings exercise as well. And the simple version is to, at the end of the day, write down 3 things that you were grateful for, appreciative of, and or that went well. So take some time, again, pen and paper, preferably, no phones, no tablets, whatever. Write down 3 things that you were grateful for, that went well, or that you're appreciative of. It could be the cup of coffee in the morning. It doesn't have to be big stuff, but really think about and take some time to think about all the stuff that you feel appreciative of, and then write them down and keep that up. There is lots of research about this one that levels of happiness pretty much immediately increase afterwards, but definitely remain that way a week, 1 month, even 3 months and 6 months afterwards. So the more you do that exercise, the better it gets and the longer it lasts. So keep that one up as well. And that's Martin Seligman, who's one of my heroes. So cognitive agility, that's another one I'll discuss in this one, is the ability to flick back and forth between scenarios before deciding which one you're going to settle on and which one you're going to act on. So which one seems most helpful? Now, cognitive agility is one of those skills that we always want to keep practicing. When we jump to conclusions, that's generally doesn't help. We just get stuck in this mindset. Our minds have the tendency to jump to conclusions pretty quick. So here's one to do. Worst case scenario sketching, I call it. So that's tip number one for cognitive agility. Don't jump to the conclusions, but actually sketch the worst case scenario, write down, set that on the left, and write out what that would mean for you if the worst case scenario would come true. But on the other hand, also write down on the right hand side what the best case scenario is when that would come true. And then in the middle, you want to find at least 3 or maybe even 4 examples of what could happen that sits somewhere in the middle. So to do that would make a big difference. So worst case scenario on the left, best case scenario on the right, 3 or 4 alternative scenarios in the middle, and make them all very detailed. So your boss tells you that he wants to see you at 4:30 on Friday afternoon. Your mind might go crazy because you didn't have a good week about thinking that you're going to get fired or whatever. That could be the worst case scenario. It could also be the fact that you're going to get a promotion, which with the best case scenario, most likely there are alternatives in between that are more realistic. So think about those two. He might just want to have your help, or he might want to discuss things, something personal, or needs your opinion about something. So do that one, and then ultimately just look at that, because that allows you to go left, right, and center between all those options and pick the one that sits better. Mindfulness, also a very good one to do. That's tip number 2 on the cognitive agility scale. It allows you to what they call exercises executive functioning. Where you have to focus, you have to concentrate, keep your focus there and not let it wander off. So mindfulness is a really good one to keep yourself sharp mentally. Lots to be said about that one. We'll talk about that another day, but a really good one as a tip to apply maybe through mindfulness apps to stay cognitively agile. Self-compassion, the idea of being kind to ourselves, because we know we sometimes fail, we sometimes suffer, we don't succeed. How would you do that? How would you do that? So 2 tips. Tip number 1, an easy way to do that is to imagine a friend going through the exact same scenario and then telling them, or imagining what you would tell them if they were going through that same scenario. So it's not you, but your dear friend. Maybe he or she has lost his or her job or experiencing financial hardship. What would you feel towards that person? How would you want to help that person through that time? Help them get back up. By imagining that, you can swap feelings of fear and shame for feelings of love and care, which will actually help you to, and that builds resilience. So put yourself in a friend's shoes, or put your friend in your shoes in a way, and think about what you would tell that person if they were going through the exact same stuff that you were going through. Number 2 in this one is to rephrase your inner criticisms. That's a good one to do as well. Inner critic is a bit of a nasty bastard, the self-critical voice that always comes up, posing threats, judging behaviors that you have and monitoring weaknesses and mistakes, etc. Tricky one. The inner critic, I've got a lot to say about that one. There's a lot to be said for sure. Won't do that now, but I'll give you a tip on how to do that, and it's just by rephrasing what your inner critic says, really practically. So if your inner critic says, "What's wrong with me?" What's wrong with you? Then potentially say to yourself, "I've tried my best." If the inner critic says, "How could you let this happen?" Then you can say to yourself, "Look, I'm a human being just like everyone else." If your inner critic says, "You can't do anything right," then potentially say to yourself, "I never signed a contract to be perfect, really. I'm only trying." If the inner critic says something along the lines of, "If you continue like this, you will obviously fail," then you can say to yourself, "Well, this is all a learning experience and I've learned a lot." And maybe the last one, a little kid could do this better than you. Then you can say to yourself, "Next time I will try this better. I will do it differently." That's self-compassion. 2 tips on that one. The last one, self-efficacy. A simple, really simple way to increase our own self-efficacy, the belief that we can actually succeed at something, is through the development of what they call mastery experiences. So Albert Bandura, he's a psychologist and researcher. He came up with this term in the 1980s. And if you think of something, doesn't matter what it is, that you can actually do well, you'll appreciate that it probably took a lot of time and a lot of effort to get to that point. So to create mastery experiences, you'll need to set realistic goals and specific goals and execute actions that are required to achieve those goals. And it probably goes step by step. And you want to monitor your progress. And then you also want to reflect on how things went and celebrate your achievements. So it's all about breaking things down in small bite-sized chunks where you make progress over time and celebrate what happened well, and also reflect back on what didn't really go well. There might be plenty of stuff that doesn't go really well, and that's cool too, because then you can reflect on it. So growth mindset, keep looking at how you can improve. So once you've created some skill in some area, again, there's lots to be said about that. So if you want to know about mastery experiences and growth mindset, contact me, we'll talk about it. But to build a mastery experience, or to look at some mastery experiences that you've already have and how you got there, you can start applying that to all areas of life. And the second one in this one, self-efficacy, is through vicarious experiences. So vicarious means through others. We can learn from others doing really well or failing. We can learn a lot from that one. So we can actually guess and estimate our own success and failure level when we're performing similar activities as someone else does, or we can see how much we're doing better or worse than what the others do by comparing our efforts against them. So the thing you want to do with vicarious experience is look at people that are in roughly similar setups as you. If you look at a top Olympic athlete and you want to do something athletic, potentially not the best person to go to look at for vicarious experiences, because they're so much better than you already that you'll probably feel dissuaded. So when you look at vicarious experiences, learning from others, try to find someone who's roughly at the same level, or probably just one step above, because that's a good one to start looking at. So you can start learning, start emulating, start copying potentially, and just learn by doing and asking for advice if you can, but just pull yourself up on their experiences. Really good one to start getting your self-efficacy up. Again, much more to be said about that one, but it's a good one to start studying. So look it up, vicarious experiences, or whichever way you want to define that one. So there you have it. Simple as that. They are experiences, 10 easy tools that you can start applying to create more resilience in your own life and increase your own happiness. And seriously, folks, if you choose to apply one of these skills, or all of them potentially because you want to, your life will absolutely get better. There's no doubt in my mind that that will happen. If not in the actual sense, then just in the perceived sense. But most likely the actual results in your life will get better. And if not, then things won't bother you as much anymore, because you become more resilient. You can deal with it. And even the stuff that does bother you, once you start to build that resilience skill set, that resilience muscle, you'll deal with it effectively and swiftly. It's not that you become immune to bad experiences or whatever it is, but you just won't bother too much anymore. It will just become easier to deal with it. And research has shown, it is fairly recent research, that people who apply those skills will experience roughly 125% improvement in self-rated resilience in about 3 months. So worth doing it. And like I said in the beginning, you can learn this, I can teach you this stuff, and we can expand on it. So if you're interested in more, and I bloody well hope you are interested in more, becoming more productive, results rich and effective, contact me. Let's talk, whether it's professionally or personally. And even if you're already pretty good at stuff already, but you'd like to increase, get a coach to keep you accountable, like an athlete has a coach to become better and better, feel free to contact me and we'll have a chat. So I hope that's helpful. 10 tips in your, or 10 tools in your toolbox. Let's keep talking. You know where to find me: LinkedIn, Facebook, email. Please find me, and I'll look forward to chatting with you soon. Have a great day.